slippery slope to go down, but I wouldn't want to be in NASCAR's shoes saying, well, we wish we had done it differently and tell Kyle Larson's family that he's passed away. I just don't think it's necessary to get to that point. Now, you're always going to have risks in racing because goofy things will happen. But if it's a one-time situation, we saw an Indy driver get hit in the head with a tire a couple years back at Pocono, just a tragic situation. But see, that's a situation that's like, how could you have ever seen that happening? I mean, I guess some will argue that you could have, but that's really a random thing, right? In NASCAR, though, you're not setting up the random when you're putting these guys in packs and making them race like this. Justin, what kind of crossed my mind this past weekend is some of these guys that are really vocal about this, like a Kyle Busch, who have really, I think, a lot of superstardom name power in the sport. What if Kyle says to his sponsors, and he works it out with Gibbs, that, hey, I'll race the Daytona 500, but when we go to Daytona in the summer, I'm not going to race. And when we go to Talladega in the spring, I'm not going to race. I'll do the one in the fall because I have to. It's in the playoffs. But Daytona 500 and Talladega in the fall, I'll do. The other two, I'm going to skip. I think he'd still make the playoffs because he's going to win other times throughout the year, and he's going to have the required standing in the points to be high enough that if he missed a couple of races, it wouldn't hurt him. What if some of these drivers say, NASCAR, you keep doing this, we're not going to race that week?
That's completely plausible, especially with the way the rules are that once these guys get a win, as long as they stay in the top 30 in points, that they're in. So, yeah, I would not be surprised in the future if you don't see a driver do that, especially as some of these guys get to sort of the last years of their career where they've made enough money where they have some cachet and can say that. Or, Eric, some of these guys may get to a point where Kyle could be one of those guys that cares more about race wins and longevity, and maybe the plate races are too much of a roulette wheel for him. And he'd much rather spend his time on tracks trying to rack wins up. And he doesn't really care about winning championships. For him, it's more about just getting race wins. So I completely could see that playing out down the road where you just see one of these drivers say, you know what? Mark Martin was always a guy that was like that hated plate racing. And when he got a chance to run that schedule with Michael Waltrip Racing, he never ran the plate races. You saw it play out last year with Matt Kenseth, where he got in the 6 car and he said, nope, I'm good. I don't want to run the plate races. Trevor Bayne can run those. I'll run the other tracks. I don't want to be in those races. So I think it's a trend that you're right. You could see here in a few years where you may have 2, 3, 4 guys in the sport with big names that sit out 4 races a year, or maybe they start the race, come down on pit road, park the car, and let a backup driver get in. And then they still get the points and potentially the credit for a win if the guy wins it.
Yeah, I think it's completely plausible that type of thing can happen and guys get creative, especially if they have enough name recognition in the sport that they could kind of make that call. And we'll see if that ever happens. I think Kyle Busch and sometimes even some of these other guys are upset enough about this type of racing that they could say, well, we're just going to take the week off. And I think it would actually work out in their favor. We'll have to see what NASCAR would do in a situation like that, because I think one of their playoff rules is that you have to attempt all of the races unless you're medically cleared or whatever, some of their other goofy fine print that's in there. So this could be a situation down the road that gets a little bit more testy if NASCAR continues to bunch these guys up and wait for the big one and hope that everyone walks away alive. Well, that's going to do it for episode 245. Justin, I appreciate it as always, putting together the show notes for us. I hope the listeners enjoy the topics that we're bringing them each and every week. We apologize for the slight delay in last week's episode. We did have a little bit of a customer service hiccup with our previous host. We have now decided to switch hosts due to that, and I'm not going to badmouth anybody. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. I guess you could just find that out on my Twitter account. I was a little upset last Friday evening and didn't get any customer support response for over 72 hours from our previous host, who said we didn't have enough storage space to upload last week's episode. And hey, when you run a sports podcast, you kind of need to have it come out on time. So we're looking into Simplecast and a new host, but for the meantime, that might mean that some of our advertisers who were tied to our previous host aren't with us right now. We'll try to get that worked out for you. If not, just enjoy the episodes without any ads for a while. Either way, Justin and I are right here bringing you the most up-to-date sports content that we can come up with week in and week out. We appreciate listening, and we hope you have a great weekend. Thank you for listening to this episode of Talk Back. Staying current on sports is our #1 goal, so we drop a new episode each Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or the podcatcher of your choice. For more info about the show, to meet the hosts, or to partner with us on future episodes, please visit talkbackfantalk.com. We really enjoy hearing your take on the world of sports, even when you disagree. After all, this show is dedicated to you, the fans. So get direct access to us on Twitter using @TalkbackJustin and @TalkbackEric. Check out our corporate feed on Twitter and Instagram using the handle @TalkbackFanTalk. We hope you have a great week. We'll talk back at you next time.